So I'm 13, and I'm failing every class in school. And 8 out of 8. I mean, we're talking like, smart kid, you know what I'm saying? I'm focused. And I think it was mostly because I was skipping school, but it may also have been the pot. But so I'm getting 8 out of 8 classes. I mean, we're talking science, history, math, gym, Fs. Like, how do you fail at gym? You skip every day, right? So I'm driving with my dad in the car, and I've got a beanie hat on, and it's Alaska, it's freezing, right? So I need a hat, and I'm like dressed up with everything, and I got the snow boots on and everything, and I'm folding my arms, and he's driving me to karate. And my dad looks like he's getting progressively more and more irritated for a couple of minutes, right? And I don't, know why he's irritated. He's like a wood guy, which means you have a short temper and blow up at everything, right? So not really. I think everything's hilarious, but he'd get frustrated. So in any case, he finally just kind of explodes and he goes, "You gotta be the dumbest kid in the family." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "You're failing 8 out of 8 classes. I mean, at least you got 100% in something." I was like, how do you fail 8th grade history? This is like the United States is a couple hundred of years old, but we're not going to be specific because you're only in 8th grade. And I was laughing. I said, what does this have to do with anything? And he says, look, you might think maybe you're a 13-year-old now, but eventually you're going to have a family and kids and a wife. I hope someone will love you because it's hard. And he says, how are you going to support your family? If you don't go to school, get a job, get a profession, what are you going to do? And I said, you're telling me those dumb, boring history classes and that math class has something to do with making money, because I can't figure it out. So if I have to go to do this, to do what you do for a living, I'll be poor. Thank you very much. So why don't you tell me something I can do for a living without going to school? Now, I was expecting to be left alone at that point, which is really why I said it, right? It was just like, I'll just tell them I'll be a failure and get it over with, and that's what I'm looking for. Leave me alone. So next Thursday, my dad comes in my room, throws a suit at me, and says, put that on, we're going to a meeting. And, I think I was playing like a video game or, reading some weird book. I was reading weird personal development books even when I was failing all my classes. It was funny. I'd skip school and like go read Carlos Castaneda or like, astral projection for beginners or some weird thing like that. How to teleport, I got my first Tony Robbins course when I was 12, I actually stole it, funny enough, when I was 12, from Walden Books. Right. Now, the only reason I tell you about that is because when I was a kid, I shoplifted for, I think, a year or two. And then later in my life, I was a missionary. And, I was a missionary, and repentance was a big deal in the church I grew up in. And so I actually made a list of everybody that I ever stole from and paid them back at least double what I stole when I was 19. So I can talk about things like that, freely. And laugh about it, because it's not a weight on my consciousness at all, Sometimes you need to get rid of the past to open up a new future. So anyway, my dad throws a suit at me, and I reluctantly put it on. And I say, where are we going? He says, I'm taking you to a meeting, right? So we drive down to the Salvation Army, and we go in this room, and there's like all these bored-looking people in suits, and me, and my dad, and a homeless guy. And he's like, that guy kind of looks homeless. And my dad said, yeah, that's a homeless guy. He actually sleeps outside the courthouse. I said, what he's doing here? My dad said, I don't know. So my dad went and talked to somebody. He says, oh, somebody said they'd give him dinner if he came to the meeting. Not the best prospecting strategy. Now, just because I'm homeless doesn't mean necessarily the best prospects, You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're like, well, Dave was homeless. I'll go down to 2nd Street and prospect. Maybe I'll find a Dave Wood in my downline and get rich. So anyway, this guy walks in. And this guy just starts talking and trying to tell jokes, but nobody thinks they're funny. And he's just talking like stories for, something like this. And then he starts talking about the dream and living on the beach. And I was like, it's Amway. Right? Keep in mind, I'm 13, right? So this guy's telling jokes and stories. Now, this homeless guy keeps interrupting through the meeting, right? Because there was only 2 guests, and this guy had flown up from Seattle or something. So, I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. I was like, why did my dad take me to an Amway meeting? I'm 13. What is this? This is that thing where there's like soap in the closet downstairs, and we get that toothpaste that makes our teeth yellow. I said, what are we doing here, right? So this guy is talking, and this homeless guy is interrupting with like the rudest questions ever. Who in here has ever done a home meeting? Who in here has ever done a home meeting where it's like a presentation, not a video, like old school with a whiteboard, and somebody rude is there just constantly interrupting you, right? Anybody here ever done that, right? Where there's like that guy who's like, this is a scam. Isn't this illegal, Why did you invite me over to this? You're trying to get all of us in your scam. He's asking questions like that, which is making this guy burst into laughter. And it was actually funny watching the interaction between the 2 of these guys, right? Because there's like this guy talking, and then there's this homeless guy interrupting, and he bursts into laughter, right? And then like nobody else thought it was funny except for me. So I'm laughing, and so I think he figured that the only guest in the room was either homeless or 13, so his chances were shot, right? So in any case, he gets to the magical part of the presentation and starts talking about the comp plan, which is impossible to understand. I mean, the goal is to confuse you in, you know what I mean? Am I really in Amway or not? Well, you don't know until you join. Right? And so anyways, he gets to the comp plan, and this guy goes, how much money you making? Right? Now, I was assuming this is like my dad, which was, of course, nothing in like 40 years. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This guy's flying across the country and to make $1.42. I just know it. I am gonna make fun of him to no mercy after he answers this question. I actually thought he'd dodge the question and say, I'm more excited than I've ever been in my life. So I listened to this Amway tape one time, and they were talking about this guy. This guy's name's Rocky, right? And he used to write a check to your downline. You'd get a check from the company and write a check to your team. I was actually still doing that in 2005, right? And so anyways, this guy's talking about his team. He's got this guy who's like a personal trainer at his gym, and these people just made fun of him ruthlessly, just ruthless, He joined that thing. He's like, yeah, he's in Amway. Have fun selling your makeup and your vitamins and your soap. I've got big muscles, but I like makeup. They'd make fun of him ruthlessly, right? So Rocky, is writing the bonus checks, and this guy's bonus check is like $1.42. And he writes this check for $1.42, but he puts it in a gigantic envelope, right? And he goes to the gym with this gigantic manila envelope, and he goes, Billy, I got your Amway check, right? And Billy says, where? He says, over here, I got your Amway check. And then he says, I want that. And he comes over, and everybody in the gym just shuts up. It's $1.42, right? Keep that in mind. And they say, how much you make from that thing? And he says, you wouldn't even believe it if I told you. In any case, I'm in this room, and I'm like, this is the time. And then he says, how much you make? And the guy says, well, it's not fair because, and I'm like, here it comes. Because I have another job, because I only started yesterday, because I'm only doing it part-time, I'm making $1.42. Come on, what's your answer? And he says, it's not fair because I'm only part-time. I've only been doing it for like a year and a half or 2 years. And I'm a full-time realtor, so I'm just doing this part-time. And last year I made, and he turned around, and I said, here we go. And he wrote a 2, and I was like, that's it. And he wrote out $220,000. And I went from like this as a teenager. And I said, if that dumb idiot can make $220,000 selling soap and vitamins to homeless people and teenagers, I am going to be rich in Amway. So then next week I was out on Halloween, egging cars and houses with my friend Matt. So in any case, I'm talking with my friend, and I say, what do you want to do for a living? And he says, I'm going to be a firefighter. And I go, firefighter? And he looked like genuinely, because his mom was a firefighter, and I was like, and he was like, what's wrong with that? I was like, you are going to be poor, poor, poor. And he says, why, what the freaking heck are you going to do? And I said, I am going to be rich in Amway. Now, I never got made fun of more in my life than Matt Linden, except for when I joined Amway at 21 and tried to get him in the deal. So the point is that I've been there. I was sitting back in 15,000 people in a room, wondering, what am I doing wrong? All you got is your best, and the reality is that most of you are doing a lot better than I did, right? A lot better, my God.